So the topic for today is architecting innovation from startup mentality to global impact. This is inspired from the Amazon's culture of innovation sessions. If you have been through those sessions, so it's very much similar content, but I've added a few additional things and my experience on top of it. Just a bit of my background. So as I said, I was in UK for 20 years. I started my career as a software engineer. So I've done a lot of different engineering roles, management and engineering manager, lead engineers. Then I moved towards application architecture and then solutions architect in AWS for roughly and about 5 years now. All my time in AWS or Amazon Web Services is doing solutions architecture. So I am on customer facing role. So I started with startups and digital native businesses. Then I start looking at the financial services customer, and right now I'm looking at the global financial services customer, so big banks. So that's kind of my experience. So a lot of time is spent talking to the customer about how to adopt AWS. Before AWS, I was customer of AWS and other cloud CSPs as well, cloud service providers. So that's kind of my experience. So as I said, this topic is in the public domain. So a lot of things I will talk because it's a lot of things how Amazon do things. So it has to be in the public domain. So I've curated contents from different areas to give this holistic talk. Q&As are welcome. Most of the Q&As I would like to address in the end. If this is something really strong you are feeling about, come out of mute while I'm presenting. I'll happily take the question or any comments. But in the end, we will have dedicated Q&A time. So we will park most of the questions there. Also have got a couple of surveys, one in the start, one in the end, just to get the feel of audience. Nothing personal here, just to know the audience. So I will be sharing that Slido link. If you can participate, it's good to participate so that it's not just one-way conversation. Communicate two ways is always better than one way. So that's the theme of it. A lot of PowerPoint slides are here. It's all non-technical mostly. So in Amazon terms, it's L100, level 100 talk here. But yeah, I mean, in the Q&A session, if you want to go or dive deep into any technical details, happy to do that. My role is very technical in Amazon. So yeah, without further ado, let's start it. Let me share my screen. Perfect. So you can see I will share my QR LinkedIn code in the end as well, but that's my LinkedIn QR code if you want to connect. But yeah, as I said, my name is Fahad, Senior Solutions Architect from AWS. I just want to put the disclaimer. I'm here talk about all the experiences from Amazon, but I'm not representing Amazon in official capacity here. So I thought I'll just mention it here. But as I said, all the contents are in the public domain. Right, so let's get started with some audience participation. Just two questions here. If you scan the QR code, it's the Slido. Would love to know about you, just to understand the audience profile. Nothing PII here, just general questions. If you can do that, and I'll also uh, start looking at the answers. So if you scan the QR code and then once the answers start appearing, um, I will share the screen of what it looks like. First question is just about your job family. Okay, so it start to appear. Let me, oops, this is very slow. What's going on? All right. Product managers, business analyst, architect. So all technical roles so far. Compliance manager, great. I'll give a few more seconds. Project manager and business analyst as well. Okay. So mostly non-engineering related roles here right now. All right, let's go to the next one quickly. This is just for me to understand how familiar you are with this concept. Okay. Okay, that's cool. What's that? All right, that's cool. So we have 60 odd percentage either have not known about it or not explored enough. So you will find something new here. So 29% who are totally aware of this culture of innovation topic. You may find repetition here, but yeah, as I said, it will be some of my experiences there as well and some additional stuff. So you may find it useful as well, but just to for your information, it's very much related to that talk if you have seen that or understand that concept. Perfect. So without further ado, let's start it. I understand the profile now. All right. So let's start. So Amazon's mission, it's a very broad statement here to be and by the way, a lot of this talk is about Amazon. If it's nothing personal here, so it will talk about how Amazon does things. It does not mean it's the best or perfect way of doing things. It's just because this talk is about Amazon and how they do things. So that's where it is. So you may want to take few parts out of it, this talk, or may not be, or you may take some inspirations, but just to set this expectation here. So you'll be listening a lot about customers. You will be listening a lot about Amazon. That's what this talk is. So don't be surprised later on why just talking about Amazon here. So this statement, Earth's most customer-centric company, very broad and very intentional. And this statement is not new. This was the statement since the early days of Amazon. And the reason is there is to keep to few folds here. One is to keep all of us. So we have 1 million, 100,000 plus employees there, right? We are all laser focused on one mission, which is customer centricity. So that keeps us focused there. All our hiring is based on this kind of principle. All our body of work, promotions, all work towards this. So this is a very important statement for whoever works for Amazon here, and we are all buying to this concept here. So nobody is forced to do it. It's just the way we have been onboarded. We understand that's what we are about. And innovation also, that gives us the lead, or it gives us the permission to innovate on the behalf of customer. So that's very important. That why customer centricity is so important is because this talk is about innovation, and innovation actually starts from there. That is our permission to innovate. So we always start with the customer, work backwards. So if you are familiar with Amazon Web Services, we have 200 plus services currently on our platform, and most of those services either come directly or indirectly from a customer ask. So we always look at the existing service, for instance, EC2 or S3, if you're aware of those terminologies. They are all the features development, 90% of those features are coming directly from customer requests. So again, we always start from the customer, work backwards, hence the whole innovation idea there. And that's just Jeff Bezos. He's the founder and ex-CEO of Amazon. Um, One thing, this is his quote about customer, but a very interesting thing or very beautiful statement there is customers are always beautifully, wonderfully dissatisfied. Again, this is talking about no matter what you think that's an innovative idea, there's another level you can go because customer will find that either innovative that day but not tomorrow, or may not be innovative at all for a segment of the customer or for all the segments. So that always keeps you on the toe. That always keeps you thinking outside the box, beyond the boundaries, thinking big. I'll touch base on think big later on because that's one of our leadership principle. But yeah, that's very important. So it's all coming top down. It's always there since day one. And that leads to a lot of different products, right? So Amazon.com, the retail arm, email, which is always there, but it has created so many different channels or different products, and they are not organically related. Like e-commerce has nothing to do with consumables or a physical retail, for instance, but they are all stemming. They have some commonality. Of course, the first commonality is customer, but and some commonalities are like AWS is a stem from or a offshore from the Amazon.com because we had created an infrastructure and decided, okay, why not start giving this infrastructure to other customers who can benefit. So some are organic as well, but a lot of them are maybe complementary, may not be complementary, but they are all stemming from that customer centricity. And we talked a lot about flywheel in AWS. This is one. It was created at back of the napkin once, but then it becomes a standard structure. But not in various areas, various products, we always talk about flywheel. They may not look exactly like this, but in this instance, for instance, assume we start with the customer experience. That's our goal, right? If we improve customer experience, it will improve the traffic on Amazon.com website, for instance. If increase the traffic, that means more sellers will start to sell on Amazon. And by the way, right now there are more third-party sellers than Amazon itself selling the products. That's the result of this exactly same flywheel. And then more sellers results in more selections of product. And then, of course, it increases the customer experience and so on and so forth. But as an offshore as well, when we have more sellers, more competition, price goes lower, and then customer experience in turn increase. It all goes down to these 3 points. So we want price to be low, not high, selections to be high, not low, and then more convenience for the customer. That all contributes to our customer experience, the flywheel. It ends up in growth for the business, for better experience for the customer. And again, so the start of this whole talk is about customer, just to set the scene, why it matters and how it matters and how it results in so many different products in AWS. Now I will shift my focus towards innovation. And there are four aspects of how Amazon organizes for innovation. We'll start with culture. So you can think about this as people, process, and technology as well. So it's another way of putting that, but that's Amazon's approach of how we have created these four different areas which contributes towards the innovation. So first of all is culture. And customer obsession, of course, comes first. But if you're familiar with Amazon, ever been to any interviews in Amazon or heard from your friends or colleagues, we have a very peculiar interview structure. We have this leadership principles which keep on evolving. Right now, it's standing at 16. You can see it's like a DNA structure. And some people I've heard saying it's a cult. They always talk about these things, but these are so ingrained in the way we operate on day-to-day basis that these are not the principles we put on the wall to look nice. They are the principles we talk on a daily basis. These are the things we totally buy in, and hence it results in the way we operate. Customer obsession, of course, you can see in the top, that's one of it. But there are so many different principles, and some principles are complementary. Some principles are actually competing against each other, and that's very intentional. For instance, I'll tell you an example. It says dive deep. So we have to dive deep into the problem, try to figure out what the situation is. For instance, there's an issue. But then it says you need to have bias for action. So you need to move fast. How can you dive deep and move fast? So there is a intentional friction between the two so that you as a leader can make an informed decision when to dive deep and when to make an action, when to look for bias for action. So that's one example, for instance. But on a separate terms, we have customer obsession and earn trust. So if you earn trust, you are actually doing customer obsession. So they are very complementary, for instance. So they are a lot. I will dive deep into a few of these principles, but you also see this statement there, unless you know better ones. So, and please be a leader. That's a very important statement. So a lot of things, like for instance, every team we have tenets for the team, that why this team is there or why this product is there. And every time we have these principles, we in the end we said you have to work along line these principles unless you know better ones. So again, this is the one, but we are saying if you are a leader, come up if you have some ideas, please be vocal about it, because there's no such bureaucracy or leadership hierarchy that you cannot reach to higher level. So, but yeah, so these are 16 principles that we work on a daily basis. I will dive into a few of them just to give you a flavor. A bit of audience participation. This is one of the principles. I'll go back just to show you the names, right? Can you tell me in the chat what this may be representing? If you want to. I'm trying to see where my chat is gone. Oops, where is the chat? There is it. Nothing in the chat yet. Okay, I'll explain. So this is customer obsession principle, the most important person in the room. So it's a symbolic thing. Jeff Bezos started this in big meetings. When room is full of Amazon employees, there's always one chair empty, and that chair represents customer, so that it reminds people that if you are making decision on behalf of customer, this is the customer. Always come back to it, We even have awards within AWS about customer obsession, who is doing that. So people are praised for customer obsession. So that's the symbolic thing. We still have sometimes meeting having one empty chair there just to represent a customer if they are not in the meeting. We talked about customer a lot, customer obsession a lot, so I won't go into the detail because we have already talked too much about it. But important station is we do pay attention to competitors, but that is a secondary motive. It's more that they obsess over customers. That is the primary. If you focus on customer and deliverables for them, competition can come or can be addressed as a byproduct. Another principle: invent and simplify. So it's an important statement here that we are not limited by not invented here. So we are given permission to experiment, to think outside the box, to invent on behalf of customer. And another statement to that is we accept that we may be understood for a long period of times. Let me give you an example. Uh, you may have used Kindle or aware of Kindle devices, which is the latest iteration looks like this. The early iteration used to look like this. Very bulky device. It used to have physical wires as well going on. And when it was released, a lot of noise was there that why this is, what's the point of this device? But the point here was the ultimate objective or the problem they are trying to solve, which is if we can stream videos, if we can stream music, why can't we do the same for books? Why can't we have a book available within 60 seconds so that if you're going on a plane or where the connectivity is not there, you still have the book ready? It started with this idea, it iterated, and now 16, 17 iteration, it's a very thin, lightweight device, easy on eye. But this is again an example of invent and simplify, that the idea was what is the customer problem, what we are trying to achieve, and then we can iterate and make it better. We talk a lot that we don't have to have everything. Bias for action is a very important principle, that we do not have to need to have 100% of the decision, 90% of the decision readily available or data point available to make a decision. Let's move fast. Uh, Once you have enough data points, less 70% maybe, let's go get on with it rather than waiting for more data points to come in, because that means you're not moving fast. And which is what this principle is. Many decisions and actions are reversible and do not need extensive study. Another audience participation. Last time there was nothing in the chat, but I will show you this picture. What does it represent? Of course, it's a door. It's not a tricky one there. It's a door. Any thoughts, ideas? Okay, so
That's
what this
good.
door, what
That's
this
good.
door, yeah, what this door represents is this. So again, that's a very fundamental thing. I and a lot of my colleagues, we talk on a daily basis when making decisions. Is it a one-way or a two-day door? What does that mean is if it's a one-way door, means if you cross the door, coming back is a very, very difficult thing. It could be business impacting, it could be reputational damage, it could be something really big. For instance, in AWS, opening a data center could be a one-way door decision where to open it, because it's a very big investment. But most of the decisions or problems are two-way doors. It's reversible. You go there, you can come back. Of course, it may mean some loss of revenue, some cost, some failures, but they are not at the scale that you cannot afford from a business viewpoint, for instance. So, and we also say that if a decision is a one way, can we break into smaller parts to make it two-way door so that we can move fast? The whole point is, can you move fast? Can you have bias for action? Because as I said, 70 or 60% data point you have, make a decision, go on. And then if it does not work, that then you come back or come back out of the door. So that's the whole point. One-way door decisions we say is very, very few. It's and far in between. You shouldn't have too many one-way door decisions. Try to make them two-way door decision. Break the problem statement down. Break the domains so that you can move fast. And that is a key to innovation here. Um, a lot of things we do here, which we talk about, I will talk about later, and I'll tie this back to this two-way, one-way door, but this is one of the key thing we operate. Customer obsession, of course, is there, but then this one helps us really move fast and move fast. topic of today's startup mentality, this is one of the thing. There are many different things I'm going to talk, but this is one of the thing.
Fahad, did you say you were happy to take questions as we go?
I can take few questions. Yes, I we will have a dedicated time in the end. But if there's something really important, yeah, please do ask.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask whether there's a time when you can change the scenario from being what might be perceived as one way to two way, and how you might do that.
Um, exactly. I don't have a readily available example. If it comes to me, I will tell you while we are presenting. But the way we approach is exactly what as mentioned before, that think about a problem. If it's too big that it becomes a one way, then try to see if there's a way to break it down into smaller sub problems. I mean, some problems are not possible to be. For instance, if you are going for a mortgage in your personal life, it could be a one-way door decision because it's a big decision. It's a 30-year mortgage in America, for instance. It has a big impact on your life. So, can you break a mortgage problem into smaller? May not be. I mean, you can always lease or rent, but that may be shifting the problem to a separate, different problem rather than solving the real problem. I mean, it could be that you're moving towards the rent so that you can save enough and buy on cash. That could be an example. I mean, of course, in this day and age, it's not looking likely that if you're renting, you are saving money because rents usually are higher than mortgage. But you get the point. That is exactly what we are trying to do here. That trying to shift the problem to a certain way that we can make it a two-way door. I mean, yeah, that's a good example, Richard. So rent versus buy on the cloud, AWS or other cloud service providers, you don't have to have racks of server on site. If that's the way a company is operating, you can experiment on cloud. It's cattles. You can destroy the servers or serverless compute in matter of minutes, and then off you go. So you lost some compute hours, some money lost there, but that's pretty much it. There's nothing more lost there. So it's a very good example. Thanks, Richard, for chiming there. So we talked about culture, we talked about customer obsession and leadership principles, which is our DNA, 16 of them. Now let's talk about mechanisms. That's another thing Amazon is very keen on. So mechanisms, I will quote Jeff Bezos' comment that good intentions don't work, mechanisms do. So if you have good intentions to do something, yeah, they are well intentioned, but they may not give you the results. You need to convert good intentions into a mechanism. It says it's a complete process. So you can think of mechanism as inputs could be for mechanism could be sorry, just shifting my screen. Input could be a customer problem. You're trying to solve a customer problem here. One day delivery through Amazon Prime, that's a customer problem. And through some mechanisms, through some automations, through some existing tooling, you've created a way to deliver an output which is enhanced customer experience. That's just a ad hoc example here. But the whole idea here is try to mechanize things rather than just based on sole intentions. And then these mechanisms then can hopefully think about those mechanisms as reusable artifact that can be used by other teams, or they can build on top of it. So a lot of time when we are doing something, we always have reusability in our mind that can we do something that other domains, other regions, other segments can iterate on top of it. And these mechanisms may be different for different countries. Something that works for England may not work for USA, or something work for a particular region may not work for another region in the same country, or even within Amazon there are so many different departments and divisions, so mechanisms can be different for them, but we always think from the mechanism viewpoint. So let me give you an example. This is kind of Swiss Army knife or something. It used to be sold on Amazon.com, not anymore. Looks strange. It can do a lot of things, but it turned out to be not useful in anything. It was trying to do a lot of things. It was not, maybe the intention was well that try to solve too many problems, but it was actually doing nothing good in the end. So what is the feature versus need? Are we trying to address a specific need here, or we are just adding feature for the sake of it, and we haven't thought about the customer problem properly? And that's where mechanisms come. So we have a mechanism. Uh, One of the mechanisms, we have many mechanisms. One of the mechanism which is very successful, it's a simplified version of design thinking. It's called working backwards. The idea is very simple. For instance, you can see the example here. This is an Amazon Go store example whereby you can just pick this stuff, just walk out. Technology it uses. You pick this stuff, come out. You don't have to queue in the line. So the problem statement was we need to reduce the time spent on the checkout queues because sometimes in the busy hours, shopping itself is less time consuming, but the standing in the queue takes more time. Now, there could be many solutions to it. We could talk about changing the way barcode works, or we have self-checkout already there. So there could be many ways of doing things. So the problem statement was simple. Solution ideas, there could be many. And in the end, they decided this innovative idea of we don't even need a queue. We just pick and walk out. We have these walkout stores in UK and America. So if you have not tried it, do try it. It's a fun experience because it feels like you are uh, you're just taking stuff out without paying, but actually in the end, it links to your Amazon.com app, and you got the correct bill as well. Even if you pick things and put it back, it knows those things through AI and machine learning technologies. So working backward is a process we use all the time in. So all the services we have, I said 200 plus services on AWS and all other products on Amazon, they always born out of this mechanism. So working backwards mechanism, we start with the problem statement, and I'll tell you what that mechanism is, and then we come up with solutions. And of course, the biggest question here for the working backwards is who is the customer? We all are customers in some shape or form for a service or a product. So you have to think carefully about the context of the customer and try to figure out who the customer is and what is the problem we are trying to solve for that customer. Five questions that we usually ask is who is the customer? What insights do we have about them? What is the problem or opportunity there? What is the most important or what could be benefit the customer the most? And then we start to think about solution because that comes later. And then how do we test it? So I will in the working backwards, there are uh, these are the three important stages. So for instance, if you're familiar with Amazon and S3, which is our object storage, it went through this process. The process is this. We first start with a press release. It's a one pager, which basically, as the name suggests, it's like a release. Like today is 29th of July, 2025. We are going to solve a world hunger problem, and then goes on and goes on. So it will actually simulate the behavior that at this date we are going to do this through this mechanism and whatever the detail is in one very concise format, one pager only. Amazon is a very has a culture of writing, narrative culture is there, and this one page feels like a simple thing to do, but when you try to consolidate a complex problem or situation into one page, it becomes very, very complicated. How do you condense everything in one page? How do you have all the data points there to convince the reader of that press release that, yes, this is the right thing to do? So all brilliant ideas we do at Amazon, it starts with this press release. So we start to create press release. Let's do a press release. Let's give it to the leadership, be it the segment leader, your department leader, be it a very high level up, but you create press release, give it to the leadership. And then alongside press release, you also have to think about FAQs, like what are the edge cases? What are the potential questions for this service, product, whatever you're releasing, customer may have? So think from customer viewpoint inside customer shoes and think about edge cases and already provide those answers. So you have already done a lot of thinking. And when you're doing this FAQs and press release, you refine your ideas automatically because idea is refined so much better when you're writing it down and when you're thinking about those edge cases. That helps. And then third stage of that is create visuals. It does not have to be that pretty. It could be just a sketch drawing, whatever it is, but try to and if it's a UI driven, then it will be something like this. Otherwise, the visuals could be flowcharts, could be anything. But again, try to explain how the customer journey will look like, the data flow looks like. It could be anything. That they are the three important parts of the working backwards. Then we also have this narrative culture. So we also create 6-page documents. Again, if the idea is selected, maybe you create a slightly detailed version of it. That again helps towards ironing out the ideas. And the whole notion or the way it started is once Jeff Bezos was given a presentation, PowerPoint presentation on a idea or a product, and he was asking a lot of questions because PowerPoints are very limited in real estate. You only have few things on the PowerPoint. It's not like a document. And he was asking a lot of follow-up questions, and the team was telling them all the answers. They have the answers, but it was in a document. So in the end, he says, "Why don't you share the document with me, and I will just read and make an informed decision much quicker rather than having this back and forth." And that creates the started this process. So all the main I mean, this is a PowerPoint presentation I'm doing, so we do PowerPoints, but all critical decisions, important decisions, we don't do PowerPoint. We do narrative 6 pages. We sit in a room with all the decision makers in for 1 hour, 20 minutes silence, everybody reads the document and do nothing. So they look at the document the first time, so they don't have preconceived notions. They don't come up with a biased approach or something they already have. Everybody sees this first time, first 20 minutes read it, rest of the time let's debate, let's grill you on why you have done something or how it's good for the customer. Again, that makes high velocity decisions in a very quick iteration, usually in that 1 hour, because you have done enough research, you have done all the data points, everything is in that concise 6-page narrative, and then people have all the details to make a decision there and then. And then from this, something else happens, which I will touch in the next part of this presentation. So yeah, so these are the example of narratives. Oh no, sorry, narratives, mechanisms, which is the second part I mentioned. So we talk about culture, which is people part and customer obsession, and then mechanisms, processes, and we talked about working backwards a mechanism as one of the key mechanism. Architecture is all about technology. So of course that plays into the decision making of innovation as well. I'll give you some numbers. This is more Amazon related, but just to give you a sense of a scale here. So these are all AWS or Amazon Web Services. So these are the stats. I put the link to the blog itself. So 2024 Prime Day is our discounted day. So Amazon put a lot of discounts on those days if you're not familiar. So Amazon Aurora is one of our relational database. Processed 376 billion transactions on that Prime Day in one day, and terabytes of data were stored. DynamoDB is another example, which is our NoSQL database, so non-relational. 146 million requests per second. So the scale is totally of a different magnitude here. Amazon Lambdas, AWS Lambdas are our serverless computes. So they handled over 1.3 trillion invocations during the Prime Day. Amazon CloudFront, which is our CDN, again, 1.3 trillion HTTP requests went through this. So the scale is really to a totally different scales to a lot of organization and companies can see. And this is all coming from the third part of the innovation that we do, which is the architecture part. And Amazon grew organically, right? So Amazon.com, when it was started, it was a monolith. We all familiar with the concept of monolith, one code base. They used to have single binary deploy once a week, every Thursday, I think. Um, if it needs to scale, they add more developers, typical the way system used to grow, right? And then in 2011, Jeff Bezos emailed every staff in Amazon.com that, look, if your component, if your service communicates with anything else, you have to do service-oriented architecture. You need to have an API. Otherwise, you are out of the job. Basically, that's it. It's coming top down. You need to do service-oriented architecture. And that's where it all starts. The architecture part of the innovation starts. And then suddenly, finally, this is one of the example of microservices for Amazon.com. So it's just showing the connectivity. Ultimately, it ends up in the microservices architecture. I'm sure you're aware of how microservices work. So totally decoupled architecture. Um, all contracts are negotiable between the service teams. So everything that communicates over the APIs. It helps towards decentralization of the team and the services. So that again, the architecture also plays a part in the innovation, even though we think about innovation as ideas, but also architecture plays a role as well as the technology that drives that architecture. So some of the examples of how it's delivered is it allows for instant experimentation. So there was a comment there, of course, if you are spinning up things on the cloud, you can experiment, turn it down. So that's another example of the architecture choice of over there. But it can also help toward those ideas. So I talked about those narratives, right? So if you come up with an idea, you can quickly do a POC and prototype very quickly without having a proper architecture in place through the cloud. It can help towards the cost of the failure because you're reducing the blast radius. You are doing a very again these could be a two-way decision here. So all those different components I talked about, they can all collaborate together to come up with this innovation that we are trying to achieve here, and of course rapid scale and iteration. So architecture, I didn't go into the much detail because it's all about technology, and I saw a lot of folks are less so on the technology side here. This organization is also very key towards the innovation part. Again, the idea you will see synergies with what you may be doing already, but let's talk about it. First of all, hiring. Amazon says we hire builders. Now, builders does not mean you are a coder or engineer. Builders means you are hands-on in terms of thinking about the ideas, asking questions about why or how customer experience could be improved. You don't you could be hands-on in terms of writing those documentation, which is the narrative. So you could be hands-on creating prototypes, but you have a builder mindset. You are going through this. So our hiring process, which is called Loop, if you have been through or you're aware, it's a very grilling 6 interviews in one day. We all the interview questions are around those leadership principles, 16 I mentioned. And those all are evaluating against cultural fit as well as your builder mindset. So that's where it all starts. And then all our promotions also are based on those leadership principles of what you have delivered or built or created new concepts or ideas. So it's ingrained into our DNA, the way we operate and progress in AWS. So that's one thing. So we hire builders. Then what about the next thing? Two pieces team. This is a concept which maybe you are doing it already in some shape or form. The idea here is you should not have a team more. You should not have a team with having people more than who can eat two pizzas. So of course, pizza size could be different. American pizzas and British pizzas are very different. So assume 8 to 10 people per team. That is an ideal shape of a team. So remember, I mentioned mechanism working backwards and those narratives. You come up with a think big idea, Amazon Go or a pay as you walk technology, for instance. You've created the narrative. Now you will own that idea. So leadership is very helpful that if the idea is good, they will give you resources. They will help you. You identify the people you need and the different personas or roles you need in that team. They will give it to you. You go on, you create the idea, you build it, you develop it, you deploy it, you maintain it. So it's your responsibility. A lot of ownership is on you. Responsibility is on you. They give you a lot of freedom. You go on do whatever you want, but of course, whole responsibility is then your on you. Of course, it may be a failed idea, but the failure is time bounded, resource bounded. It's not a very big team. If a team is growing too big, that means it's time to cut the bound or reduce the boundary of the service. So EC2 is our, for instance, virtual machine equivalent on the cloud, right? So EC2 is such a big service. So if it's growing too much, then you divide a service or a product into smaller subcomponents so that it still remains within that two pizza team concept, so that you can have that autonomy, ownership. It does not grow too big. You have full accountability for that. So this is the way we operate, and that is one of the key mechanism of delivering innovation. So working backwards, you create the narrative, you create those two pizza teams, go on and deliver. One of the component of two pizza team is single threaded leader. So there's no consensus going on here. One person, they are the leader. They are given full autonomy of owning that team, making sure everything is going as the part of the plan. Of course, they will report to their management chain, but autonomy is a key here and ownership. Ownership is one of our leadership principles, if you recall, after out of those 16, and that plays a key part here. So bias for action, ownership, they are truly representative in this two pizza team here. So for instance, what this two pizza team does, so they do everything. And again, I've put a QR code there if you want to read more. But planning, security, performance, scale, documentation, everything, they do everything. So in your mind, you may be thinking, oh, it's similar to a Scrum team. Yes, it's similar concept. Single-threaded leader, that's some companies do it or not. And then autonomy is very important there, and the ownership and responsibility. But as I said, this is Amazon's view. We call it two pizza team. You may be calling it Scrum team, but ultimately the idea here is autonomy, ownership, and if it's growing too big, try to cut it down so that it is still focused on the key outcome they are trying to achieve there. They own everything, and how can you do that? A lot of them is through automation. So Amazon is very big on observability, monitoring of every aspect, from service to business metrics, everything they have to monitor. And then they try to automate everything as well. So again, CI/CD. I know this is an agile group, so you guys are totally familiar with this concept here. But it plays a very important part in the innovation as well, because bias for action, you have to move and you have to have ownership. And then everything starts with the customer. So all those things working together to bring that innovative product out. And this is the mechanism it has been used for all these key innovations. Like, as I said, just walk out technology is a prime example. The team who created that narrative were given the responsibility to create the physical store at the start as well. So it becomes certainly their day job, but think about it, that how much you have evolve your role from just doing your day job to something totally different and becomes your full-time job, or you just created a new role out of yourself. So that's the beauty of it. For instance, I'm a solution architect. I have a specific roles and responsibilities, but I can do a lot of things which nobody asks me why you have done it. Because if I'm delivering what I'm supposed to deliver for my assigned customer, then if there are any initiatives I'm taking, nobody will question me that why did you take that initiative? Why did you do that? For instance, London Summit for AWS, you may be familiar with it. We have once every year in April time. So a couple of years back, I was the owner of all the contents for London Summit. It's totally not in my domain. This is not my day job. It's not as part of my job profile. But that was a thought leadership additional opportunity I got. I had to write own narrative of why I was suitable for owning that. Then it got approved, things like that, and then I delivered. And then that's a totally different thing from my day job. Of course, it takes more time. Maybe sometimes I have to work overtime, but that was my personal choice, not that Amazon asked me to do it. But that creates this excitement as well, that in your job that you can do so much thing, value added thing that is not maybe happening directly as part of your job role or assigned customers. Now, in terms of few interesting things for deployments, and one thing we do in the deployments, again, this is slightly peculiar for AWS, but some shape or form you may be doing it, is you may know the concept of availability zones on AWS, that we have different availability zone, and one availability zone can have one or more data centers that makes one region. So when we are releasing the service, one thing they do as part of a new feature, for instance, we deploy a new feature to one box. So one box could be one virtual machine, one EC2 instance. So assume the whole service is running on a fleets of server. Then you just pick one box, you deploy it, you observe all the metrics out of it and any anomalies. If that works, then you extend the deployment to the whole AZ, which is multiple data centers. Then from one AZ to multiple AZs, that becomes one region. Then you move to the next region, pick one box, deploy, and so on and so forth. And of course, everything is automated. You are not deploying or somebody is babysitting every deployment. Everything has to be fully observed, and everything has to be fully automated, including continuous deployment and delivery, because that's the way they operate. Of course, some services may require some gates, but that is the key to it, because these are small teams who are doing everything. They can't do it if these things are not automated. So ultimately, um, in AWS, for instance, which is the cloud division of Amazon, These are the things they are doing now in terms of technology part of the innovation. So independently scalable microservices, nothing new. Industry is doing a lot already, but it's just a combination of many things. Everything is connecting through APIs, deliver updates continuously. Everything is infrastructure as code, fault tolerance. Everything fails all the time, which I'm going to talk about next. So yeah, these are the things. Again, you can see all those details in public documentation. I think I have put yeah, this YouTube link in last slide. It's a very good reference if you want to visit. It talks about all these things from the technology viewpoint I talked about, but in much greater detail. Have a look when you have chance, and or I can share the link in the chat. On the technology side, um, Werner Vogel always say, who is our CTO of Amazon Web Services, that everything fails all the time. So things will fail, uh, including your ideas. So failure in inventions are inseparable twins, as Jeff Bezos once said. So with the idea that you have two pieces team, you have full narratives, you have two-way doors, hopefully. So the failures are contained most of the time. Things have failed. So for instance, Amazon started auctions business 1 point to compete with eBay at 1 point. It didn't work out well. Then they convert into another name called Z Shops. Did not work out. Finally, these learnings becomes marketplace, and now marketplace is so big, so a lot of third-party vendors are selling on Amazon.com through marketplace. So ideas fail, but they take shapes and forms to suddenly becomes another idea which may be very successful. Similarly, Fire phones, massive failure. I think at 1 point they had to write off 200 million worth of dollar of hardwares because of that failed idea. Jeff Bezos very closely involved with this innovation or this product, Fire phone. Didn't work out. What happened then? That learning, that team ultimately becomes part of Alexa and Echo devices. So this failure ultimately becomes a new product which is so successful. So the failures are part and parcel, as in here it says, inseparable twins, failures in invention. But how do you take that failure and how do you move from that failure? So of course they bound the blast radius through two piezo teams and well-contained mechanisms, and then they use the learnings. And some of the learnings are these again, few more mechanisms to mention to you. Correction of errors. Again, a lot of companies are doing it, which is like your how you call it, post-mortem. So correction of errors is again in a public domain. You can see it, scan this QR code. Uh, it's a closed loop activity. What it does is it's the whole idea is learning from the failure. So it's not about blaming who was responsible for it. In fact, the person who may be responsible may be the most valuable contributor to this correction of error, because they will know why it failed. That team, that person, that development team may be responsible for it, but they will contribute towards it and they will create learnings out of it to make sure that it does not happen again. So it's a very well documented. Again, this is in public domain. You can see correction of errors or COE, which helps towards, again, a mechanism that Amazon is working. Again, as I said, postmortem is another way of doing things, but it's just a twist to that. Another thing we do is ORR, operational readiness review. That's again taking learnings not from your immediate service or team, but all the services which may have failures or whatever they have learned. They created a checklist. So before releasing, they go through that checklist to make sure they have abide by certain rules or requirements, so that they don't repeat what we have learned already from other teams. Another mechanism, very interesting, weekly ops meeting. So we have, as I said, 200 plus services. We used to have a physical board, now it's virtual. We spin it, and we have all the operations team, all the teams, global teams join this meeting. Uh, they come prepared with all the operations observability data for their service for that week, that month, whatever it is. So everybody is well prepared to be grilled, because a lot of eyes are on them. They will bring their charts and things. Then they spin this wheel, and the only couple of teams, wherever it stops, for instance, S3 or EC2 or whatever it is, it stops. That team presents their findings for that week to everybody. It helps in visibility. It helps in learning that other teams are learning from other teams' mistakes or anomalies or whatever it may be. It keeps people on the toe that they could be picked up. So it avoids that slack because everybody knows it's randomized. As nobody knows who's going to be there. But if you are there, you don't want to be in a place where all the leadership is there and you're not prepared. So it increased the engagement, as I said here. It increased the engagement. It saves time as well because you cannot do operations review for of all services. It's just not practically possible. So that's another mechanism. So as I said, intentions are well, but mechanisms is there to solve critical problems. And these are three mechanisms in terms of failure or learnings, to take it forward. Hopefully it makes sense for you. So we talked about, just do a quick time check. We are doing well. So we talked about four pillars, which helps towards innovation on Amazon: culture, mechanisms, so people, process, architecture, technology side, and organization, which is again part of the people and mechanism combined. So those four things contributes towards Amazon's culture of innovation. So I will summarize all these things into one slide, and that one thing is coming from our new CEO for Amazon, Andy Jassy. We have shareholder letters come out every year, and this year's shareholder letter, or 2024 to be more precise, summarize these things very well. So I just created a summary of that in this one slide, and that will tie us back to the world's largest startup, because Andy did mention that in our shareholder letter that we are operating as the world's largest startup. The link is there if you want to read it. Again, it's in the public domain. First thing, whatever building you are building has to be focused on solving a real customer. I think that is loud and clear in this whole presentation. Customer obsession, working backwards. You always have a real customer problem. You're not creating a Swiss Army knife there. Great startups are on a mission to change what's possible for customers. So again, some startup mentality is coming here. Amazon Hire Builders, as I said, our whole interview process, our promotion process, everything is aligned towards our leadership principles and building. So builders are inventors, and they are very discontent. Andy Jassy use the word YQ, or they ask a lot of whys. They ask a lot of questions about why this is not happening, why certain thing is doing in certain way. YQ is a new terminology. They come up with these in this letter, but the point here is hire builders and think about how to improve customer experiences, which ties back to point one. Ownership, very important. What do I do if this was my own money? Ownership is one of the key principles which we are judged on, because if you have seen, as I mentioned, the whole two-pizza team, the ownership and autonomy is so much there, because leadership cannot work day in, day out on that team. They are given full authority and autonomy, with the fact that they are owners. Leaders are owners. All the builders, even if they are junior or all the way higher level, they are all treated the same in terms of ownership. Everybody assumes that you have the ownership and you will display that ownership in whatever you do. Speed disproportionately matters for every business in every industries at all time. What Andy was mentioning here is that you cannot, it's not a binary decision to have a speed or quality. They are together. They work hand in hand. He also used a word, a phrase in our reInvent, which is our biggest session of the year, conference of the year in November 2024, tyranny of or. So we have to cut this or and becomes an end organization, that we have to do this, and both has to have the quality or the requirements coming out of it. So it's not about, yeah, we will do speed or we will do quality. We have to think both, and it can be done. But one important point here is this has to come top down. It's a cultural thing. If people who are actually executing it are not giving full autonomy, are not giving full ownership, then this will not work. So of course, some things have to come top down. Be scrappy, be lean. We joke that if something is very well organized, very well thought out, everything is um, so if I'm taking an initiative and everything is so well planned, we think how much time they have wasted in planning, because they could be scrappy, they could move fast. They don't have to do everything about all the permutations before involving or moving forward. Just just be scrappy, be lean, have a small team. uh, for one thing we always say, don't go solo. Always have diverse perspective, which is another leadership principles of ours. So leaders are right a lot. So they always seek diverse perspectives. So they always uh, get opinions from different roles, different profiles, personas, so that they can make an informed decision. Have a lean team, not go solo, but don't be too big and don't think too much. Let's have this startup mentality mindset. Move fast. You are, for instance, a two pizza team. Go scrappy. Deliver something. It can go. It can look better. It can do better later on. For instance, uh, some of our products, their UI may not look the most polished one. Or if you have used AWS, there are some competing products. You can do certain things with product A or product B. It's very common. That's the slight downside of these two pizza teams, these autonomy, because they could be multiple teams working in parallel in similar ideas or competing ideas. That's the downside, of course. But we think this is better than having a more planned, because how can you plan at that scale of organization? Then you can't move fast, because bias for action is important to us as well. So again, as I said in the start, bias for action, deep dive, etc., they can compete each other. You, as a leader, you need to make an informed decision when to stop, when to move, and of course willing to take risk. If you are playing safe in this category of not to lose, then that's not kind of the approach or people Amazon likes. They want you to take risk, you with the ownership, with these ideas do you come with, and then move fast based out of that. So I've summarized everything which I have covered in this session in this slide, because I thought this shareholder letter is nicely covering this, of how they are innovating, and not just innovating, they are keeping this massive organization like a startup, with each team working as its own business unit. So S3 as a service in AWS could be its own business unit. They are doing everything within their own boundaries. They may be using mechanisms from neighboring teams, but that's the whole point here, that you work fast. You cannot wait for the decisions coming from top down, because that will stop you. Bureaucracy shouldn't be there. So these are the ideas that we have employed to make it work like a startup. And if you are familiar with Amazon, again, one thing we call all the time, this is my last slide before we open it for Q&A, is the day one. Uh, this is the picture of one of our Amazon offices. It says, and this is again, we call it all the time, that at Amazon, it's always day one. The QR code will take you to a page where it tells you what is a day one versus what is a day two. We always say we do not want to go into the day two mindset or mentality, because that means we are not then operating as a startup. Startups, they're lean, they are moving fast. So we have to, as Amazon, they say we have to stay on that mentality, that mindset of day one, because as soon as you become day two, you won't move fast. And it's very easy to become day two because of the fact of the scale of the organization, the how big it is. And it's intentional to do that. And again, this is coming from Andy Jassy when he was a CEO. Um, there could be some places where it may not be totally practiced the way they want it to be, but they always strive to achieve this. They always remind people that, look, this is, and if they see smells of day two, again, you can see the differences of what day one versus day two is on this QR code. They always remind you that why you are doing something, what you're doing. For instance, one of the things we do all the time is escalations. Escalations is something maybe thought of as you are finger pointing a team or a person that they are not doing their job well. It's totally opposite. Escalations, and we are encouraged to escalate high, escalate quick, escalate early. This is just to show signals to the leadership that something is not working, or I need help. I need help is not a bad word in Amazon. That there's so much support out there. Just say out loud, I need help, or we are not happy with something. It could be intentional, it could be unintentional. But again, that's another sign of day one, that you are escalating, you are making it visible rather than hiding it out because you are trying to save your job, for instance. So that is all the whole concept of day one there. So a culture and an operating model that puts customer at the center of everything. That's the tagline if you go to that website. I hope this was useful so far for you.